We meet again. Hello. As you might tell, I have a little bit more of a smile on my face today. That's because I got sleep last night. Good sleep. I got some good sleep, and I think my test went okay. You know, knock on wood. Yeah. So I don't know. I'm just kind of. I'm feeling good. Things were better. Sleep is so important. It really can make all the difference in the world. But I know what I wanted to talk about today. So I'm just going to start. If you look at the calendar, or at least the date in which this video was filmed, it would be October 30th, 2015, which is one day before Halloween. And it's kind of funny because I could have sworn that Halloween was today, and I didn't really realize it until I was talking to my project manager, so who's essentially my boss, at work, and he took the day off today to spend time with his daughter, and just to get ready, get a head start on trick-or-treating and everything, and because they're doing it tonight for some reason instead of tomorrow. There's like a downtown thing going on in the city, and they do a whole parent-child day where the businesses downtown actually support the community, and they donate candy for kids to go downtown. It's a little bit easier for the parents because the parents get to have some other adult amenities there while they're going around with their kids, and the kids have a lot of fun, and it's a great community event that happens. Anyways, I was talking with him, and he had mentioned that Halloween was coming up, but that it was the day before Halloween, and I said, well, I thought Halloween was on Friday, and he said, no, it's on Saturday. I was like, huh, that's weird. I could have sworn that my calendar, the month of October on my calendar ended on Friday. He's like, that's weird. So I went and I checked back on my calendar. Sure enough, I swear, they forgot Halloween. Like, it wasn't even on it. Like, October 31st wasn't even on the calendar. It just goes, and I was thinking all month, wow, okay, I guess October has 30 days, and it doesn't. It has 31 days. And I had no idea. All month I thought it had it, but it didn't. It didn't have the 31 on the calendar. I've never seen that before. I've never seen a calendar wrong. And so obvious, especially for a holiday, on a weekend. Like I can maybe see how you skip like a number or it's off somewhere. Like, especially February. Like, February you could easily screw up. But like you have one job if you're a calendar maker. Just get all the days right. The photos don't matter. Nothing matters. It's a $12 piece of paper, and you only have it for the entire year. It was just kind of comical. So I was thinking all month that Halloween was tonight, and it's not. And I guess my brain hasn't really quite adjusted. But that got me thinking, because I was like, it's Halloween-ish. And I'm going to talk about Halloween a little bit. I don't have a whole lot to talk about Halloween except that it is Halloween. But the thing that I do that intrigues me about Halloween was that every Halloween I think back about when I was a little bit younger, and I would go trick-or-treating with my parents, and as I grew up I would go with my sister alone without my parents. And I think holidays are important for us as a species. Dates are important. Things that happen annually, because they kind of teleport us. And it's not just Halloween. You have Christmas, 4th of July, these things that we look forward to every year. Because they're reminders. Like, because whenever you happen on the date, you think back, oh, I remember 5 years ago, or 10 years ago, or 2 years ago. And it happens. And what I was really thinking about is, yes, it reminds you of your past, and I can only imagine having kids. I have no interest in having kids anytime soon. But when I do have them eventually, it'll be fun. And I can easily see how parents have a lot of fun with their kids doing those years, like the yearly events, because you get to think back about what it was like when you were a kid, and then you remember, wow, my child is exactly where I had this memory. in my mind, you know, from 25 or whatever years ago. And I can see how that's a lot of fun, especially as a parent, to see your child grow up and develop. And I can only imagine, you know, every year after year, especially kids, because they grow so fast. You know, it's not like a friend. You're like, whoa, you look exactly the same as last year. It's not really a big deal. But your kid, you know, like some kids, like they grow like a weed. You know, they grow like 6 inches in a year sometimes. That's a pretty fast growing kid. But anyways, what I was really thinking about is that, because we think that it's the same, right? Especially Halloween. Like, you think about the street on your neighborhood, where your house was, or Christmas, it's like, this happened at this exact house in this exact place at the same time. When in reality, it's not actually the same at all. I mean, if you stop and think about it, right? The air, okay, I guarantee that the atoms you were breathing, the oxygen, the nitrogen, the carbon, the CO2 that was in the air, everything that you were breathing into your lungs, it's not like none of the same atoms. I mean, I don't know what the probability that the exact same atom went in and out of your body as 1 year ago or 3 years ago, but it's got to be astronomically small of a likelihood. So you don't, nothing that's not the same. The food is not the same. Even your skin, like your body, like now correct me if I'm wrong. You got Google next to you, but I believe what is it, like every 7 years your body completely changes all of its cellular structure. Like all the actual cells have died already, and new cells have replaced them every 7 years for the entire body at least. Now, I didn't major in anatomy, so correct me when I'm wrong on that, but I do know that happens every several years, where every cell in your body has completely replaced itself with a new one. And so you don't even have the same cells for large parts of your body, so that's not the same. And you're not even at the same place, really. Like, yes, like let's assume you're in the same, you're walking on the same concrete, right? Well, what if it's like 5 or 10 years? Like, they replace roads all the time. They replace sidewalks all the time. People replace their roofs. People replace their windows. People repaint their house. So I guess the old paint was there, but now you can't see it. It's underneath. People have different cars. So the time is certainly different. So a lot of the things aren't even the same. And even thinking about it a little bit more, like, yes, you're in the same house or the same block on the same street, getting the same candy from the same neighbor maybe, or at least your kids are, but the earth moves around the sun. And even if it's the exact same year around it, the sun is moving constantly throughout the Milky Way. I mean, if you were to take a macro view of the Milky Way, you would see that the stars are hurtling at really fast speeds around the center of the Milky Way, or the galaxy that it's in. I mean, it doesn't even pertain to the Milky Way per se. At just insane speeds. So even if the Earth is at the roughly exact same position around the sun, it's not in the same point in space, right? And then you have to factor in that the galaxies are ever expanding too, rapidly. So it's never, like, so many things are not the same at all. You're in a different place, you're in a different place in time, I don't even know how many miles or kilometers away from the actual point in space you were in before. And that was an interesting thing to me, is like just how many things are really not the same when we think they are. And how silently things change beneath us. It's kind of like water moving under the ground table, you know, in certain areas of the earth. You know, like you have a river, yes, but then underneath the river there's also water tables, and that water just rushes beneath us, and we have no idea, not a clue, how much water is moving beneath our feet at really high speeds all the time. And that's what I was thinking about. I was thinking about how things change, because, you know, I had also talked about yesterday, like the rings of a tree and how we change and we adapt, but at the same time we don't. You know, we genuinely hold memories and character traits and things wear on us through life, and you can't get rid of them. And they're not even, I don't really think scars are the right words, but they're grooves in how our thought processes think, and the patterns and how our character is and who we are as a person. And yeah, they can adapt and they can be molded and shaped, but a lot of it's the same. But at the same time, it's completely different. Like I was also thinking today, because I live in Oregon, and so the interstate in Oregon is the big one, I-5. The I-5 runs from Seattle all the way down to through Oregon, through Portland, through Medford, through Redding, through Sacramento, goes all the way down to San Diego. That's a long stretch for one road. And I was thinking, right, like even the road, like every time I've driven on I-5, and I've been on I-5 since I didn't grow up in Oregon, but my grandparents did, and so we would come up. And I think about when I'm on I-5, like this was not the same road at all. If you really think about it, this was not the same road at all when I was 10 years old. Because they replaced the pavement, they have to repaint it, they have to change out the medians, the grass and the dirt has certainly, the dirt has been worn away through the rain, and new soil has come in, and you have new grass and new plant life in there. Like, and so I was thinking about that about people, right? Because if you look from space, the road, it looks the same. You know, you still have the same sharp bend in Portland, around I-5, and a little side note, that bend just south, and it's very southern of the city of Portland, there's this really sharp bend on I-5, and it's technically, I think, I'm pretty sure about this, that it's the sharpest turn, it's the most turn in terms of, radians, rate of radian turns, in entire I-5. That is in Portland, Oregon. Little tidbit. So anyone who's ever been on I-5 can know that the sharpest turn on I-5 is in Portland. But I was thinking about that, like, I think that's how some things, not a lot, but quite a number of things are for us, right? You have the road, it completely gets worn down year after year after year, car after car after car, and it has to be replaced, it has to be updated. But it still follows the same route, the same groove. And that route and that groove that a highway has is constructed when it's created. And I think that's what's so interesting about kids, is that I always wondered, I still wonder, like just what component of us is a result of our environment. And I had talked several days ago about how the geography, well, not really, it probably technically wouldn't be correct to say geography, but the geolocation, maybe, of how a solar system is, or a planet is, with respect to the environment, and, can completely alter a genetic species in the entire route, and the potential route of how intelligent life, or any kind of life, might evolve and adapt to come to be on that place. And I think about that a lot with kids, because I know yesterday I had talked about how Damien on Shark Tank, one of the wealthy guys on Shark Tank, had said, life is 20% what happens to you and 80% what you do with it. And I think about that. I question that. I wonder if that's actually true. I would guess that it's still probably I personally am in the camp that I do think that at the end of the day, everyone has a choice. And even if something is not your fault, it is, once you become an adult, once you're 18, it is still your responsibility. And even though the situations are sad, very devastating in some ways, in terms of some of the environments people are born into, and it's certainly not their fault. But that's kind of a strangle, and the political debates are going on right now, and that's what they're fighting over. They're fighting over whose fault is what, and what responsibility is it for someone to take care for their own thing, or to pay for their own thing, or should there be health care or not? And I think about that quite a bit. And it's a big question. And I don't think it's a question that will ever really go away. I think all we can really do is have a better understanding of things. And I really don't like how they call them debates at all. I think that's ridiculous. I think that's absurd. Why can't something just be a discussion? Like, why can't we just talk about it? Why can't we just listen to each other, hear what someone has to say, and have a deep conversation, and really talk about each other's perspectives. Now there's some other political theories. There's an interesting book I have. It's kind of derives from economic game theory. It's called, I forget what it's called. It's a very, very, very good book. And anyone who has any interest in how the world works, or has a natural interest in watching political events, should really read it. It's called The Art of Political Manipulation, I think. And it was written by a few guys, and they're business guys, I believe, and it derives from economic game theory and how the games of politics are actually of self-interest and motivation purely and only, which is in alignment with economics. But anyways, I think that's obviously why they debate, because they're not really, well, I don't want to make any political statements beyond that, but it's, I always think about how much, you know, when you're making I-5, when you're planning and you're designing I-5, or any other interstate, like when someone is in the womb and they're developing as a person, the general infrastructure of their body, you know, their organs are developing, and it's getting ready, they're being ready to be born, you know, how much of that is developed? Like, I mean, like really, they think about it, like how much of our thought process is set in stone because of our genetic information? And then on top of that, how much of that is set in stone, or relative stone, or at least really firm foundation, you know, between age 0 and 6. I mean, there's a lot of studies that show just how difficult, how easy it is for someone to learn a second language. You know, if you take a look at children, you know, there's a sharp cutoff, I think around age 5 and 6, to where the ease of being bilingual just completely drops off because of, you know, those infrastructures in the brain that have developed. You know, because the brain is certainly very plastic, you know, right after birth up until, you know, 5 and 6 years old, and it's still very plastic. It has a lot of plasticity. For guys, well, not just guys, but I do know that guys, I think their brains finish developing around 25, which I think is a little bit later than women. But I'm not sure about that. But just how much does that affect someone? How much does that affect a person? And I think that's a very interesting question. I think that's an important question, and I think it's something that we'll never really have a good understanding or answer to. I think that's one of the things that we'll struggle with. I don't think science or any kind of deep review of that will really lend a clear image. You know, how much can someone change? How far can free will go? How far can ambition go? How far can talent go? Before there's that limit. That's just who you are. And I think I think a lot about that, because I mean, if I go back to where I started talking about in Halloween, you know, I kind of think about how your friends, you know, just imagine how, like, some of your oldest childhood friends that you might have known since kindergarten, 1st grade, or 5th grade. I mean, yes, they are your best friend, and you know them intimately, and yes, you do get older, and sometimes your lives, and you sometimes become completely different people. But it's amazing even if you develop and become different people, you can still be friends. That's the best thing. But imagine, like you had no choice. Like, you really had no say in who your friends were. Like, your parents just happened to choose to live in this country, in this state, in this city, in this block, and your friend just happened to be there down the street, and you happen to be in this school district, and you happen to meet them this way, and you really have no control of that. Absolutely zero. I mean, your parents do. So parents, you gotta think twice. Just think twice. Just be careful when you move. Hopefully it's a decent place. But think about it, because I have some very, very good friends that I've been friends with since before I was 10. Like, I was in single digits. And none of that was up to me. That was just pure, to me it was chance. To my parents, they just picked a place. And at the same time, it's like you have to be mindful as a parent as to where you choose to live, and the environment and the neighborhood and everything that goes along with that. But at the same time, there's no way you can't know who your kid's friends are. That's ridiculous. But yet it can have life-altering consequences. I don't want to say consequences, but life-altering influences on people. And I kind of find myself never really coming to any kind of understanding, and I don't even think if it's necessarily something that we should understand. I think that's kind of the beauty of life in a lot of things, is that we don't know, and that's great. That's what life is about. I think a lot of the best things in life are the deviations of the expectations that we have for ourselves and of our lives, and of each other's lives. I think that's where humanity is. That's where mistakes, simple faults, that's what makes us great, is these subtle differences that make us all unique and singularly different and separated from anyone else. I think that's really what it has more to do with. I think personally, for me at my current age, I'm personally very comfortable with how I grew up. It wasn't ideal in New Mexico. In terms of the long run, I have no interest in living there again, ever. But I can't even imagine growing up anywhere else. And I have a great family, a loving family, an incredible friend group from growing up there. And I couldn't even imagine replacing a single person or a single event. And there's a kind of magic to that. There's like this subtle, poke, a taunt. I don't want to say from the universe, but or God, or whatever you think. But there's kind of like this little, I'm going to surprise you. It's not exactly what you think. And I like that. I like that a lot because I think the fact that a lot of things in life can't be predicted, and a lot of things are meant to not have any control over. I think that really forces ourselves to see who we really are. Because, I haven't lived for too long, but I have lived long enough to see that, or starting to see, that I think a lot of people kind of sometimes struggle, and everyone does, I do this too, but some people really struggle with the idea of not being in control of their lives, and not being in control of something, or the direction of something. And I think a lot of people are uncomfortable with that, and I don't really know I certainly don't know any particular reason why that is. But would you really want to have full control of your life? I don't know. I don't think so. I've made a lot of mistakes. My pencil has an eraser on it for a reason. I think that it kind of removes the burden, the surprise, the element of surprise. It removes the burden of having to get something right.